Last week, I interviewed Jen Dunn from Rustic Rehabs out of Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. She has the cutest shop where she creates the most stunning vignettes with her thrifted and upcycled finds. In that episode, we discuss how she went from the corporate world to owning her own business. If this is something that you've always dreamed of, this is an episode that you're going to want to check out. Now, in this week's episode, I am going to be discussing the creative process of thrifting. So, from picking the item in the thrift store to transforming the item and then finally getting that item into my vendor booth, we're going to discuss the whole process. So, let's dive in.
Welcome to the Rescued and Upcycled podcast with weekly inspiration, tips on trying new techniques, and overall, real talk about owning your own DIY business. Now here's your host, Sonnet Ullenbrook.
Welcome back to Rescued and Upcycled. I'm your host, Sonnet Ellenbrook. I'm so excited that you guys are all joining me on my podcast today. This is episode 18, and if you are new here, welcome. Every other week, I have been interviewing different creatives or small business owners, and then the opposite weeks, I love to chat about all different aspects of owning and running a small business. So, in today's episode, I am going to be diving into the process of thrifting, the creative process or the creative side of thrifting. And you may be asking yourself, there's a creative process? Yes, absolutely. I feel like there is absolutely a creative process that goes into picking an item in a thrift store to completely transforming the item. And then finally taking that piece and then putting it into your vendor booth or your storefront. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump on in to how I see or my vision of the creative side of thrifting. So if you guys have been following me for a bit, you will know that I love thrifting. I cannot get enough of it. There are some times that I do go on a little thrifting hiatus, but honestly, I'm right back at that thrift store because I love it. When I'm looking for something, I typically start in a thrift store. Unless it's very specific, like a specific item that I know that I just cannot find at a thrift store, I typically start there. It was funny because over this past weekend, everyone, my group of friends that I hang out with all the time, they're like, we just can't even imagine being in a thrift store. We just don't have the patience for it. How do you sit there and dig through, just random stuff? And I'm like, that is the fun of it. That is the thrill of the hunt. And I love it. And especially if I have an idea or vision of what I am actually looking for or wanting to thrift, then that even makes it more exciting for me. I also just love to just find random things that I never even imagined I'd pick, and I find there. But, I walk through those thrift store doors and I just get so excited about the unique finds that are possibly just waiting for me on that other side of the doors. I walk in and my heart flutters a bit. So just let me know in the comments, you guys. Do you ever feel that way too? Or is it just me that my heart flutters a little bit and I get that excitement of what is waiting in the store and I cannot wait to start hitting those shelves? I also talked about how I hit up the hard goods shelves first. So I did an episode where I talked about do I find, thrifting with other creatives, being like, are they my competition? And they're not. But I talk about in that episode how I really like to hit hard goods first. So I really start with the glassware first. And then I go into like the basket area and then I go into like the metal aisle and then lastly, like wood items. And I kind of, typically I go up and down each aisle, but I go down the first, all the glassware and I look at that over and then I go into the baskets and I try to see what's in there. And then I just, like I said, that, hit up all those aisles. And then lastly, I hit up like the furniture section and then the soft goods, so such as pillows and blankets and things like that. But when I'm searching for items, the first things I'm really looking for are items that I can just resell. And I think, so many of like the people in my, members in my membership group, even, like viewers, they just think that all I do is upcycle. But that is not entirely true. I try to find items that I can just resell as well, because, I don't always have time to transform every single piece. If I bought items only to flip, I would probably have so many items of, goodies in my stash, I would never get through it. But I love doing those items, so I'm grabbing those as well. But the items that I just buy to resell, these are the items that are the easiest because all you really need to do is give it a really good washing, then price it, and then put it in your booth. So it is a very quick process, and many times, even washing it is I always talk about the worst part of being a reseller is pricing, but it's also like, the cleaning of the item and making sure because you don't want to just put that in your booth as is. You want it to look brand new. You want it to look as new or clean as possible. And sometimes I go into some people's booths and I'm like, did they even wash it? All I had to do was stick it in the sink and give it a good wash. And I don't think that everyone does that, but it is very important as a reseller. The other thing I look for are vintage items that are in good condition, and then newer items that somebody possibly just bought and then already donated. It completely amazes me how quickly items are donated to the thrift store. Home decor is so changeable, and people's tastes are constantly changing. They buy and donate so quickly, you guys. So definitely be on the lookout for items that are in really good condition that you can just slide into your booth because there's a lot out there for the buying. It's amazing how, people just change their home decor so quickly or after a season that, everything's so seasonal. They decide, well, I used it for this season. I'm going to just donate it and get something new next time. And then that is when you come in and you get it at a really good price and you can resell it to somebody in your vendor booth. So when I'm picking items, though, I'm envisioning how I can use them in a display or vignette. So I pick up an item or I pick one item up, which sometimes like inspires an entire vignette. And so the creative process starts in the store. So something will catch my eye. Not sure exactly, like all of a sudden I'll see one piece, I'll pick that piece up and I'm like, oh, and it just like, I don't know. I can't even explain the whole creative process in my brain because I just start like it's like rumbling through like, okay, now I'm gonna look for this. This would look really cool with this. And I look at like different color combinations. If there's texture, if I'm, maybe I'm looking for different heights. I just start envisioning how I'm going to use that item and what other items that I could use with that piece. This really helps me, by brainstorming that way, it really starts helping me look for other items that I may have passed up or didn't even notice. So, by doing that, like just looking at that piece and start brainstorming right in the store, it just really opens your eyes up. Then there are the items that I'm looking for that I just upcycle and transform. And when I'm looking for these pieces, I'm looking for items with really good bones, but they may be outdated. I just try to envision, what else can I do with this piece? I'm looking for like picture frames or other artwork that is outdated or like signs that are outdated with, outdated sayings. I'm just always looking for another use or purpose for that item. So sometimes I buy items with a vision, and once I get it home, it completely changes. It amazes surprises me each and every time. Like, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with it. And typically, when I find an item, I look at it, I say to myself, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. Or I have some idea of how I'm going to transform it. I don't have the complete vision, but I have some idea. So it's not like I'm just picking the item up and saying I'm going to rescue this and putting it in my cart. There's a vision behind the piece itself. Now in episode 6, I talk about creating vignettes and how I get the creative juices flowing. So once I get these pieces all home and I get them all cleaned up and organized and on my shelves, and then I am going to try to come up with like a video, for instance. And I don't know where to even start. Like some days when I'm ready to do a video, you guys, it is a complete just it's chaos. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I start brainstorming and I have no idea where I want the video to go. I know I want to do a thrift to treasure or, maybe a DIY, but, I just have no clue at that point. So, what I like to do is go into my storage area and then I stand there and I just look at all the items I have available and I just start like brainstorming or like, trying to envision like what could I do with that piece and what could I do with that? And all of a sudden I get a spark and an idea, and then the creative juices just start flowing. I grab that item and then I'm like, okay, then I could do this. I could do that. I'm like trying to, or what could I go with this? So, one thing I talk about a lot is on my videos, my thrift to treasure videos, I try to create like items that will all go into a vignette together. So, if I am upcycling all these pieces, I don't want them to be all like random. I want to, because I am reselling these and putting them into a booth, I want them to kind of coordinate. And that's what I do. And so I start like brainstorming like that whole process. Like, okay, what else do I want to put in this video? Oh, I'm going to grab this item. Oh, and then I'm going to grab that one. And then it just starts flowing. And I just love that feeling when I know exactly, or I have a vision and now let's implement it. If I can't get anything going looking at the items though, there are days that I go out there and I'm looking around, you guys, and I'm like, I have no vision. Like I cannot get anything going. I have no creative juices. I'm getting nervous because I'm like, okay, I have a video I have to put out. So I do the opposite then. If I look at items and I cannot figure out which items I want to grab, I go into my stash of supplies. And this is amazing. It's kind of crazy to think that sometimes we all forget what we have in our supplies. And so I go in there and I start like looking through. I'm like, oh, that's right. I bought this transfer, or I have these decoupage papers that I wanted to use. Or, I've always wanted to try this paint inlay, whatever it is. And then as I'm going through it and I'm looking at the supplies that are there waiting for me to use, I'm like, oh, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So it starts with the supplies versus the actual thrifted items. And after grabbing those, like whatever supplies I want to use, the main pieces, then I go back out into my storage area and then I start brainstorming from there. And then the creative juices just start flowing from that point. And you know what? This process sometimes takes longer than I'd like, but it is part of the whole creative process and the upcycling. I hate the feeling though of a creative block. This does sometimes happen if I'm under a time crunch and I need to get a video out and get it finished by a set time and I'm running behind. That's when I feel like I get a screeching halt on my creative juices. What's going on? And it can just be so frustrating. But I try to push that feeling of pressure aside and I just start really focusing on, the creative process itself. And I just stand in there and I try to like I said, take those pressures away because The pressure of having a deadline can really put a cramp in your creative style. I've seen it. It's happened to me. So, but yes, once I get those, just a little spark going, the creative side just takes over and it all comes together, which I absolutely love that part of it. It's just sometimes to get those creative juices flowing. After I have been inspired, though, and have a vision of what I want to do with the items, then this is when the fun really starts, you guys. The creating, the transforming. And I really try to show this on my videos that even though I have this vision, I have a whole vision in place. My vision can definitely change. So if something is not working the way I want, I pivot and I try to come up with a different solution. And I try to show that on my videos to make, everyone understand that it's not like I have this vision and it just happens and it's just, perfect all day long. Sometimes I run into problems. Sometimes, things happen. Like I said, problems, and I have to change things up and I have to come up with a different solution. And this is just all part of the creative process. Sometimes I even just set the piece aside overnight and come back in the morning and take another stab at it. So, really, after a good night's sleep and a fresh set of eyes, it's amazing the new ideas that can happen. Yes, the I have done this so many times lately just because I feel like just walk away. Just walk away from what's happening with this project. Something will happen in the morning and you'll maybe have, a different vision. And sometimes it's even better than when you went to bed. So, well, obviously, if you're having a problem, but you know what I mean. I've even brought items onto my lives and asked my viewers for ideas and suggestions because you, as a creator, can get into a creative rut. And sometimes you just need to be re inspired by others and their creative ideas. I honestly, you guys, I just love going live and hearing from my viewers and just listening to their ideas and suggestions. So the first time I did this, I got a lot of bad feedback from people that weren't digging that I asked people for ideas and suggestions. And I was like, why? They actually said I didn't have a plan of attack and that's why I was asking. Well, yeah, because it was an item that I had lost my creative vision for, and why not share, or like ask for others ideas and suggestions. So I really love the interaction on my lives, and that is just one thing that I will never change. It's just something that I really love to hear ideas and suggestions from all my viewers. But it is not for everyone, but lives aren't for everyone either because paint, it takes time for paint to dry and, projects to be completed. And I find that people that are wanting things to be sped up and moved along faster are really looking for an edited video, which I hope that they've now realized that after I've said it so many times. But now back to, after I complete the project, and this is one thing I do want to recommend to each and every one of you. It was the best thing I've done. I've created what's called a holding area in my storage area. What it is after I've completed all my projects, I have this area where all these completed projects are, and I'm starting to pull together vignettes in this holding area, and I can very easily take a look and pull a complete vignette together to fill my different booth displays and my vendor booths. And I have been on a mission for like the last 2 years. I know it sounds crazy that I have been organizing for 2 years, but it didn't take me didn't happen overnight that I became unorganized in certain areas, and I'm adding so much to my business that it has just taken me a bit longer to get organized. But my storage area My storage unit has been honestly the best investment. And if you have a storage area, having the proper shelving is the next best investment, because rather than having everything flat on the ground, definitely use the height of the storage unit. And then the third thing are the clear plastic bins with labels, and you can organize everything there. So when you're ready to then do your next creative process, which is pulling together a vignette for your vendor booth, you can so easily go in there, look at, what items you have for resale, what items that you've upcycled. Look at, I have an area where I have like different pillows and blankets that I've purchased. So, like the soft goods. And I can just start pulling together all different pieces. I have an area of all greenery. So I go there, I pull whatever greenery I need. Everything is now really coming together. And it makes pulling together a vignette so much easier than it had been in the past. I look back and I'm like, how did I even create vignettes before? It must have been a complete chaotic mess because I it is so convenient the way I'm doing it now. So it just helps with that whole creative process. If you're not scrambling, you have more energy to put into the whole creative process and creating an amazing vignette for your booth. And then from there, I take all those items, and I slide them into a display. And this is, like just that whole creative process. And there's so much creativity that goes into the thrifting process, the creative vision from, the items you choose to the upcycling of your pieces, and then creating those displays and vignettes. And this is one of the reasons, that I love to thrift. Well, obviously the thrill of the hunt, but also how fulfilling it is to go out, rescue items, and then give them new life, with just a spark of creativity. So I do challenge each and every one of you to go rescue a piece and give it new life. Whether you are a reseller or you just want to, repurpose it for your home, but definitely go out and rescue a piece from your local thrift store. So, well, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I just wanted to give you a little insight into my creative process and what I go through when I go thrifting and then, do the upcycling of the pieces. It's like it's just one of the best parts of having my small business, that whole creative process. And I love sharing it with my viewers. That's why I put out videos every Monday and Friday over on YouTube. There's only, out of the 3 years that I have been had my channel, there's only been actually, I think, a handful of times that I did not put a video out. And there were reasons why. So, whether like last week I didn't Friday, and I'm like, it's been a while since I haven't put a video out. We're on a family vacation and I just couldn't fit it in. So, but other than that, guys, every Monday and Friday, if you guys are enjoying, you want to see more of the actual upcycling process, you can find that over on my YouTube channel for that. Now, in next week's episode, I am excited to say I'll be interviewing Debbie from LZ Lane Art Garage. She is an amazing artist and paints the most beautiful pieces of furniture. We discuss her creative process when she transforms a piece. So you guys don't want to miss that. So you heard kind of how I transform my thrifted items. She takes furniture pieces and she just absolutely creates the most stunning pieces of furniture, with paint, and she does decoupage, and she does all of this stuff on these furniture pieces. It's absolutely gorgeous. So you don't want to miss that episode. Now, if you haven't done so yet, and are loving this podcast and watching it on any of the podcast platforms, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss out on a chance or an episode. If you are watching this over on YouTube, definitely hit the subscribe button. Give me a like and let me know what you think of the podcast. So I am actually going to be putting my podcast on a separate channel from my YouTube. So I'll have Sonnet's Garden Blooms. That's where you'll see all my thrift to treasure videos, where I go do thrift hauls, upcycles, all of that over there. And then my podcasts are now going to be on their own channel. So it's going to be Rescued and Upcycled by Sonnet Podcast. So that will be on a separate channel. So just so you guys are aware. But you guys can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sonnet's Garden Blooms, where I always put out a ton more content for all of you. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.